In the age before iron kissed the earth and kingdoms drew their borders in blood, there lay a humble valley cupped between mountains like a secret held by the world. In that valley stood a cottage of weathered timber and stubborn hope. There lived a boy named Jack, and though mortals saw in him only hunger and threadbare clothes, the unseen strands of fate wound around him like vines waiting to climb. His days were marked by toil and aching emptiness. His mother, proud even in poverty, worked her weary hands raw on soil that yielded little but stones and stubborn weeds. Their cow, once the pride of their livelihood, had grown old, her milk thinning to a pale trickle like a blessing fading from a forgotten god. Hunger gnawed gentle at first, then cruel, then constant. Yet in Jack's eyes flickered a restless spark, a sense that the world's veil was thin and might tear if he reached far enough. While others bent to the earth, he looked to the sky as though waiting for a sign to fall from it. But destiny rarely falls softly. It climbs, it twists, it demands. One evening, dusk brushed the valley in violet and gold. Jack sat outside, his stomach empty but his heart full of longing. Wind rustled the leaves, whispering of places where mountains scraped the heavens and ancient things walked unseen. Clouds drifted like pale giants across a purple horizon, and Jack imagined footsteps so heavy they shook the world. He did not yet know that imagination was memory sleeping, waiting to wake. Inside, his mother weighed hope against survival and hope lost. When she called Jack in, her voice carried the weight of decisions forged by necessity, not desire. "We cannot starve," she said, her voice soft as worn linen. "Take the cow to market, sell her. Buy grain before hunger becomes our grave." Jack's chest tightened. The cow had been with him since his father lived, before the fever took him and the laughter in the cottage had faded like smoke in wind. To sell the cow felt like severing their last tie to a gentler time. Yet obedience and love guided him more than grief. He nodded, though sorrow tugged his gaze downward. Dawn came pale and chilly. With a rope in hand, Jack led the slow, tired cow down the winding path from the valley. The world stirred awake around him. Birdsong first tentative, then bold. Dew-silvering grass like tiny stars fall into earth. Though his feet trod worn dirt, his mind wandered to distant peaks and ancient whispers. Somewhere deep inside, a quiet hum stirred, the resonance of fate approaching. The road forked near a solitary ash tree whose branches twisted toward the sky in prayer or warning. Who could tell? There Jack met a stranger cloaked in moss green and twilight shadow. The man's eyes gleamed like river stones polished by centuries, reflecting curiosity and knowledge older than soil. His staff bore carvings of vines and stars intertwined, symbols Jack could not name but instinctively respected. "A fine beast," the stranger murmured, palm brushing the cow's flank as though blessing it. "Where do you lead her, boy?" Jack hesitated. The stranger's presence felt like stepping into a story too grand for mortal shoes. "To market," he replied. "We need food. She must be sold." The man nodded slowly, compassion and mischief mingling in his gaze. "And what if I said I offer you a bargain richer than coin? Something that grows, not dwindles, life for life, potential for potential." Jack's brow furrowed. "I have nothing to trade but the cow." A rustle like wind over ancient leaves whispered through the air. The stranger opened his hand. There, cradled in his palm, lay 5 seeds, dark as midnight earth, yet shimmering faintly as if starlight clung to them. They pulsed softly, alive. "These," he said, voice lower now, like distant thunder, "are no ordinary seeds. Planted where heart and sky meet, they will grow a path to realms unseen. What am I? There lies fortune and trial. Destiny does not give without asking." Jack stared, torn between disbelief and a stirring so old it felt newfound. An ache like longing and recognition entwined. "A magic," he breathed, though mortals rarely spoke that word aloud. "If you wish to name it so," the man replied. "But remember, gifts of fate are never small nor gentle. Greatness demands risk. Hunger fought wonder, but wonder won." Jack's hand reached, trembling. "I accept." The stranger smiled not with warmth alone, but with the satisfaction of prophecy fulfilled. The cow was led away, and Jack felt a strange hollow, loss mixed with beginnings. The seeds weighed almost nothing, yet his palm felt heavy with destiny. "Plant them by moon's highest light," the stranger instructed, "and guard your courage. For when they rise, they will call not only fortune, but forces older than envy, older than fear." And he was gone, vanished like mist, footsteps never touching earth. Jack stood alone on the road, seeds in hand, heart pounding, the world suddenly vaster than hunger or poverty. The valley seemed smaller now, the sky impossibly large. He walked home under the hush of gathering clouds. His mother's face crumbled when he told her of the trade, sorrow and anger flaring like struck flint. But beneath her fury glimmered fear, not of foolishness, but of magic, for mortals know to fear what touches destiny. Tears did not return the cow, nor soften the night. The seeds sat on the table between them, small as teardrops, dark as promise. Outside, stars pricked open the heavens. Jack felt their gaze like ancient eyes watching. He lay awake long after quiet settled, the seeds calling like distant drums in his blood. Something vast approached, and every breath seemed borrowed from a storm waiting to break. The boy who owned nothing now held the beginning of everything. Destiny had opened its first door, and the world held its breath, ChatGPT said. Night did not sleep in the valley that evening. It watched. Clouds drifted like heavy thoughts across the sky, and moonlight spilled uneven silver upon the land. Jack lay awake, the seeds resting beneath his pillow as though they were fragile dreams that might slip away if left unattended. Though he tried to quiet his breath and steady his heartbeat, excitement and dread twisted inside him like twining vines seeking the sun. Destiny hummed in the walls, in the floorboards, in his bones. His mother slept fitfully. Jack could hear her soft murmurs, the kind that come from hearts burdened by love and fear. She dreamed perhaps of the cow they once owned, of golden days lost, of a future too thin to trust. But Jack was dreaming with his eyes open. The stranger's voice lingered in his thoughts, as did the strange weight of the seeds. Potential for potential, a promise and a warning interlaced. When the moon reached its peak and spilled its cold blessing upon the world, Jack rose. The cottage creaked as if it sensed a shift in fate and mourned the simplicity soon to be gone. He stepped outside barefoot, the earth cool and damp beneath him, whispering with night sounds. An owl's low cry, the sigh of wind, leaves trembling like soft breath. The valley held its breath, as though even nature felt the approach of something ancient. Jack walked to the small patch behind their cottage where they had once tried to grow beans. Now only weeds claimed the soil, stubborn and thin. It felt fitting. Destiny often sprouted from unlikely ground. Kneeling, he placed the seeds into the earth, pressing each one as though placing hope into a grave or life into womb. His hands trembled, not from cold, but from the knowledge that this act would change everything. He whispered, though he did not know why. Grow, he breathed, as if urging courage in a sleeping giant. Moonlight touched the soil, and for a heartbeat, Jack thought he felt something pulse beneath his palm answering him. Then stillness returned. Duty done, he stood and returned to his bed, though his heart did not rest. Night stretched on like a long-held breath, and Jack felt the world turning, not with time as usual, but with anticipation. Forces unseen stirred in distant realms, ancient eyes opening, ancient hungers waking. When dawn hovered at the horizon, rising like an ember into gold, the air changed, sharp, electric, alive. Jack's mother woke first. He heard her gasp, and for a moment fear clutched him, fear she would be disappointed again. But when he stepped outside, his breath fled as though stolen by wonder. From the soil where he had pressed the seeds now rose a stalk unlike anything earthborn. It twisted skyward, thick as a tower's pillar, its surface a living tapestry of emerald coils and golden veins. Leaves spread like shields, broad and shimmering, catching sunlight in 1,000 trembling jewels. Higher and higher it climbed, piercing mist, surpassing clouds, defying reason and claiming the heavens. It was not plant alone, but ascension made flesh, a path carved between worlds. Jack's heart thundered like hooves across sacred ground. All washed over him in fierce waves, but also fear of heights beyond vision, of realms beyond mortal right. Yet deep inside, something ancient stirred and answered. This climb was his to make. It had always been. His mother stared, trembling hand pressed to her mouth. Jack, what have you brought upon us? Her voice quivered like a struck string, fear and awe tangled. She was a woman bound to soil, to hearth, to survival. What rose now threatened to tear him from her world? Jack swallowed, feeling the weight of love and destiny but unable to step back. I don't know, he whispered, but I feel called by danger. She replied, eyes wide as sky. No mortal climbs into God's domains and returns unchanged. He reached for her hand, small against his. I will come back. I swear it. Promises mean much to mortals and little to fate. Still she nodded, because love believes even when belief is foolish. She pressed a loaf of stale bread into his hand, tears streaking her cheeks. "If you go," she whispered, "go with courage, and remember who you are." Jack looked up. The beanstalk shimmered, its leaves rustling like whispered prophecy. With a deep breath, he began to climb. At first, the stalk felt like bark and vine, rough and solid beneath his palms. But as he rose, the world below shrank until the cottage became a memory and the valley a smear of green. Wind roared around him, sometimes sharp as blades, sometimes soft as lullabies. Clouds embraced him with icy fingers, glittering droplets clinging to his skin like stars against night. He climbed higher still, and in the thinning air, voices began to murmur. Not in words, but in tones older than language. They sang of giants who strode the firmament of wars between skyborn and stoneborn creatures, of treasures forged from storms and dreams. Jack glimpsed flashes between clouds, gold, bone-white pillars, wings beating like thunder. Myths breathed around him, no longer tales but truth. Fear threatened to unmake him. Yet in that fear, courage took root. Courage, after all, is born not of safety, but of standing on the edge of the unknown and choosing forward. Hours stretched, or maybe moments. Time behaved strangely where Earth's pull loosened. His arms burned, his fingers numbed, but determination held him upright. Finally, emerging above the last veil of cloud, he reached a land suspended between sky and eternity. A vast expanse unfolded, fields of silver grasses that rippled like moonlit oceans, mountains shaped like sleeping titans, rivers that shone like liquid dawn. And far in the distance, rising like judgment itself, loomed a fortress carved from pale stone and gold, mighty and terrible. Its towers pierced the heavens, its gates vast as mountainsides. This was no mortal realm. Jack exhaled wonder and dread entwined. He had crossed a threshold not meant for human feet. Below him, the world he knew lay far beyond sight. Ahead, destiny waited with shadowed patience. His journey had begun, and the gods or giants were watching. The air in the sky realm tasted different, richer, sharper, tinged with something ancient and electrifying like breathing thunder before it strikes. Jack stood trembling not from fear alone, but from the enormity of it. This place was not simply above the world. It was older than it. The ground beneath his feet, smooth white stone veined with gold, warm as living bone, seemed to hum, resonating like the heartbeat of a sleeping god. Silver grasses whispered in a tongue too old to name. Wind moved as though it carried memory, not air. For a moment, Jack simply breathed, trying to steady the tremor in his chest. His hands bore calluses from the climb. His arms ached, yet some hidden part of him felt stronger than it had ever been. Something inside him stretched toward this world, as if he'd always been meant to walk here, as though his blood remembered what his mind did not. He stepped forward. The ground gave the faintest pulse beneath his soles, and the silver grass bowed, acknowledging him or warning him. Far ahead, the golden fortress shimmered like a sunrise forged into stone. Each tower glowed faintly, as if sunlight and starlight had been woven into its walls. The gates were sculpted with forms both human and monstrous, wings, horns, crowns of bone, blades like lightning. But between him and that shining citadel, the landscape stretched vast and strange. He walked through rolling hills where shadow and light chased each other like ancient rivals. Sometimes the air shimmered and he felt watched, eyes unseen, old and curious. He wondered if giants walked here, or spirits, or something that wore the shape of both. He felt as though he had stepped into the realm behind mortals' dreams, the place where legends sparked and gods once contended. Then a sound broke the hush, a tremor in the distance, deep, rhythmic, growing. Not thunder, not wind, footsteps, heavy enough to shake the silver grass, heavy enough that the earth remembered every impact. Jack froze. The sound rolled closer, each thud like a drumbeat of fate. He hid behind a stone outcrop, pressing himself against it as the air thickened with presence. Something vast approached. The tremors grew until dust danced and stones quivered. Then, from beyond a ridge, a figure emerged. Colossal, towering, skin pale like marble streaked with iron. A giant. Jack had heard tales whispered by fires and carried on winter wind. None compared to the reality. The giant's stride covered distances Jack would have needed minutes to walk. Hair the color of storm clouds flowed down its shoulders, and in its hand it carried a club of jagged crystal, each facet gleaming like captured lightning. Its face was strangely noble, carved like a king's statue, but marred by a cruel twist in the mouth, as if disdain was its birthright. It paused, sniffing the air, and Jack's heart hammered so loud he feared the giant could hear it. "We scent earth blood, mortal flesh." The giant's eyes glowed faintly, searching. "He has come, as foretold." Small, foolish creature climbing threads not meant for mortal hands. Jack held his breath until his lungs burned. The giant's gaze swept past the stone where he hid, but did not linger. With a grunt like distant thunder, it continued on, each step shaking the realm. When the giant vanished into the shimmering horizon, Jack exhaled shakily. Fear coiled inside him, but beneath it, not instead of it, but alongside, was wonder. "They know of me," he realized. The giant had spoken not with surprise, but expectation. Destiny tugged at him again, threads weaving tighter. He moved forward, more cautious now, steps light. The land changed as he walked. The grasses gave way to smooth plains carved by ancient winds. Strange beasts grazed in the distance, horns like spears, wings folded against massive flanks. A river wound like molten dawn, and as Jack knelt to drink, the water shimmered gold-tinged and sweet as honey. It filled him with warmth, strength, a blessing or a test he could not tell. Time felt different here. There was no sun he could see, yet light bathed the realm evenly, unwavering, eternal. He could not tell how long he walked before the road curved toward a valley cupped between jagged cliffs. There, perched like a jewel set in bone, was a cottage of white stone and woven branches. Smoke drifted lazily from its chimney, curling like soft hope into the air. Jack hesitated. A dwelling in a land of giants. Could a giant live in a house so small? Or was there another presence here, neither mortal nor giant, but something between? "Come forward, child of earth." The voice was soft yet commanding, like wind shaped into speech, like the hush before a storm. Jack's heart leapt. He had not seen anyone near the cottage, yet someone knew he stood there. He stepped closer. The cottage door opened without touch, and out stepped a woman, not giant, not mortal, tall, graceful hair like silver flame, eyes deep as twilight oceans. She wore robes woven with starlight threads, and her presence filled the air with quiet power. Jack bowed without thinking, reverence rising naturally. "Who are you?" he whispered. She regarded him with a gaze that felt like being weighed by eternity. "Riam Aelith, keeper of thresholds, watcher between worlds, I once walked the mortal earth before the sky swallowed legends. And you, Jack of the Valley, walk a path older than kings." Jack swallowed. "Why am I here?" "Because fate remembers what mortals forget," she answered. "Because the blood in your veins carries a whisper of this realm. Because a seed planted in hunger can grow into destiny." She gestured and the landscape shifted subtly. Clouds darkening in the far distance, thunderheads forming like gathering wrath. The realm of giants is not as it once was. Greed twists hearts, power curdles, a storm of old truths brews, and you stand in its eye. Jack felt the weight of her words settle around him like a mantle. "What must I do?" Her expression softened with something like sorrow. "You must climb higher still. Reach the fortress, face what waits. Claim not treasure as mortals believe, but truth. Only then can you return." Lightning flared across the horizon, silent but bright as revelation. Jack straightened, fear and courage twining like roots and vines. "Then I will go." Aelith studied him a moment longer, then placed a hand briefly upon his brow. Warmth surged through him, strength, clarity, a quiet shield against despair. "Walk boldly," she murmured. But remember, destiny gives gifts with one hand and demands with the other," he nodded. Turning from her, he set his path toward the looming fortress. Its golden towers now sharp against storm-gathering sky. Winds rose. The realm held its breath once more. Jack walked, and with each step the weight of worlds walked with him. The fortress grew larger with every step, yet no closer, as though distance here stretched and folded like living cloth. The sky churned above, clouds gathering like armies. Lightning crawled silently through them, veins of pale fire. Jack felt as though the world was watching, holding its breath. His heart beat not only in his chest, but in his throat, his fingers, the soles of his feet. Every sense sharpened, every sound mattered. The path ahead turned from soft silver grass to smooth stone. Strange runes glimmered faintly beneath the surface, glyphs of power older than human kingdoms, carved not by hand but by existence itself. As Jack walked, the runes brightened, responding to his presence, pulsing in time with his heartbeat. He could not understand them, but he felt their meaning. Chosen, tested. Witness, price, wind roared once, then fell silent so suddenly it felt like a held breath. From the shadow of a ridge rose 3 figures taller than any mortal and yet smaller than the giant he had glimpsed earlier. They stepped onto the path, barring his way. Their forms shimmered like armor carved from moonlight and tempered in storm. Their features were sharp as sculpted ice, beautiful in the way winter is beautiful, majestic, cold, merciless. Their eyes glowed faint blue. They were no giants of flesh and hunger. They were sentinels, spirits forged from oath and sky. Halt, Earthborn, the first declared. His voice was crisp as steel sliding free of its scabbard. No mortal passes the threshold of either hall, fortress of the highborn. Speak your purpose. Jack swallowed, but his voice did not tremble. I'll seek truth, he said, and justice, and a destiny that called me from the earth below. The second sentinel stepped forward. Many come seeking what they believe is destiny. Few understand its teeth. His gaze pierced Jack's spirit. A destiny devours as much as it grants. The third sentinel raised a spear so long it could have skewered mountains. You carry hunger and hope in equal measure. Both are blades, both can wound. Jack lifted his chin. I will climb regardless. The first sentinel studied him. Silence stretched like a blade drawn slow. Then, with a nod almost regal, he lowered his spear. Very well. But before you pass, you must answer. Answer what? Jack asked quietly. A question as old as ascent, the second replied. Why do you climb? Jack's answer rose from instinct deeper than thought. Because the world below is small and my heart knows there is more. Because hunger taught me courage and loss made me seek meaning. Because something is broken in both realms and I cannot ignore it. For a moment, the sentinels stared as though they gazed not at a boy but at a truth unfolding. Lightning cracked silently overhead, as if marking the moment. The third sentinel stepped aside, then passed Jack of the Valley. But tread knowing each step forward binds you deeper. Once through these gates, you belong to the weaving of fate. Jack walked between them. Their presence faded, though he felt their eyes linger like a shadow that was not shadow. Ahead, the path climbed sharply toward gates taller than cliffs wrought in gold and stone. They opened not with groaning metal, but with a whisper like pages turning in a sacred tome. He entered. The courtyard beyond was vast. Statues lined the walls, giants carved in regal poses, some serene, some furious, some sorrowful in a way that seemed almost human. Each held something, a thunderbolt, a harp, a hammer, a crown of feathers, a chalice spilling light. These were not merely rulers of a realm. They were embodiments of something elemental, something divine. Yet cracks marred some of the stone faces as though even gods weathered time and grief. Jack felt his breath catch as a shadow moved in the courtyard's center. A door, massive, arched, carved with scenes of storms and cities and bones, opened. Out stepped a giant taller than the one he had seen before, clad in armor etched with runes that burned faintly red like embers that never cooled. His eyes were storms caged in stone sockets, swirling with fury and knowledge and sorrow. The giant's gaze fixed on Jack, and the world seemed to tremble under that weight. So, the giant said, voice deep as mountains murmuring to one another, the earthborn child arrives. Fate does not lie, though it often mocks. Jack steadied himself. I came to find truth. The giant's lips curled into something between a sneer and a sad smile. Truth is not given. It is taken, and every truth cuts. He stepped closer and the ground quaked. I am Varigur's Stormfather, last king of the Etherkin. In ages past, mortals worshipped us as gods, feared us as monsters, sang of us as titans. Now we are forgotten, yet still we stand. Jack forced himself not to shrink. Why was I called here? Varigur's eyes darkened. Because the realms rot. Because greed poisoned the high halls and hunger poisoned the mortal fields. Because the great chain between earth and sky frays. Power once shared is hoarded. Blood once noble curdles into tyranny. Lightning flickered behind him, reflecting in his armor. And because one prophecy remains unbroken, a mortal will climb. A mortal will choose. A mortal will break the balance or mend it. Jack felt the world tilt. Prophecy, choice, balance. It was too vast, too heavy, and yet it fit him like skin he hadn't known was his. What must I do? The giant regarded him with ancient gravity. A climb further still. Beyond this fortress lies the Hall of Echoes. There you will confront not flesh, but truth itself. And know this, Jack of Earth. His voice softened, sorrow and pride entwined. Those who reach the summit do not descend unchanged. Some do not descend at all. Jack inhaled. Courage settled in him like stone warmed by sun. I will continue. Vorigor bowed not deeply but enough to shake the sky. Aye, and go, and may destiny find in you more mercy than it found in us. The path opened once more, leading deeper into shimmering halls and stormlit corridors. Jack stepped forward, heart steady, breath sharp, purpose burning like a seed sprouting into flame. Behind him the gates whispered shut, sealing the world he came from far below. Ahead the tower of truth and thunder awaited, and Jack walked toward it. A fate that felt both inevitable and chosen, as though the world had been waiting for him since before names were spoken.